Let's start. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Finance, Assets and Performance Scrutiny Committee. Item number 1 on our agenda tonight is apologies for absence. I have received apologies from Councillor Parker, who is being substituted tonight by Councillor Jill Waring, Councillor Lawley, who is being substituted tonight by Councillor Grocott. I have also received apologies from Councillors Lewis and Allport. Are there any other apologies for absence to record? No, I think that's everyone. Thank you very much for coming. Item number 2 is declarations of interest. Does any member have an interest to declare on any item on tonight's agenda? I see no indication. Item number 3 is minutes of the previous meeting. They are printed for you in the agenda pack. I do see that the names of the calling members are recorded, but are we okay if we add to that Councillor Sweeney and Councillor Tagg, who are both here present at the meeting from Cabinet? Excellent. So with that change, can we approve the minutes as a true accurate record? Excellent. The minutes are approved. In that case, we'll move on to the substantive items on tonight's agenda. Item number 4 is the Revenue and Capital Budget First Draft Savings Plans. I'll hand over to Councillor Sweeney, who's going to introduce this item. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. For those who watch the Cabinet agenda on the YouTube, you'll have heard this before, but I'll do it again. This report presents the refreshed medium-term financial strategy, including the first draft proposals being considered to balance the 24-25 revenue budget and the proposed capital programme for 24-25 to 26-27. Savings and funding strategies have been identified to address a 2.686 million budget gap for 24-25 via a business efficiency rule process have been agreed with managers as being both feasible and sustainable. A major transformation programme, the One Council programme, commenced during 21-22, which involves an extensive redesign of organisational structures, processes and technology, underpinned by changes in culture, leadership and governance. Over £1 million of recurring savings have already successfully been achieved for the programme. The programme will continue to drive efficiencies through continuous reviews and developments for the council services during 24-25. A significantly below inflation council tax increase of 1.99% per Band D property is again proposed. This amounts to 10 pence per week or less to 95% of households within the borough and A, B, C, D and E properties. It is also what we put on our manifesto that we would do no more than 1.99%. The savings identified enable a continued contribution of 250,000 to the Borough Growth Fund, and this will continue to enable investment in the council's priorities, including significant investment in boosting the sustainability of the environment within the borough and supporting development of the town centre. The capital programme for 24-25 to 26-27 is based on new schemes which are vital to ensure continued service delivery and assisting the council to achieve its corporate and service objectives as set out in the council plan. These schemes total 41.2 million, of which 16.7 million relates to 24-25. This includes schemes funded for major investment into the borough, successfully secured by the Town Hills Fund for both Newcastle and Pittsburgh. Delivering the capital programme for 24-25 will require potential borrowing. The impact of borrowing is included in the MTFS. That's my opening talk. I think it's a good time now to take questions for anybody. Mr. Turner is next to me, who is the chief accountant for producing this information. So he's either the person who can answer the questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sweeney. I'll draw members' attention to the 5 recommendations. We are here tonight to note appendices A through D, and also to identify any areas where further information is required for us to do good scrutiny. And also, this is now our opportunity to suggest further areas of savings that might be considered. With that in mind, I think I saw Councillor Brocky indicate first. Councillor Brocky.
Yes, I'm afraid you did. Thank you, Chairman. When point 2.2 on issues, promoting an everyone's responsibility culture, I've got no issue with that, except that public provision is really for the vulnerable and for people who may be in less of a position to allow simple responsibility to carry through provision for them. The implication of non-statutory provision for people, I mean statutory provision for homelessness and that kind of thing, obviously that is a civic responsibility. But the focus on the need for the council to become self-sustaining and to to have these provisions done as economically as possible. This committee is here to look at gaps and financial gaps, not really ideological ones, but I'm just concerned that some of the things mentioned further down the one council, the staffing related issues, the good housekeeping, under 2.4 savings and funding strategies, I recognise that they're proposed and that it's the job of this committee to look at them and to see whether to firm them up. Because a lot of these things have implications for staff health, for staff overload and for staff stress, and also the cost of training people to deal with multifunctional roles. My only concern, speaking as just an individual looking at this, is the implication for people's mental health and the supposition that we're all capable of having an everybody's responsibility look at things. It's obviously in an ideal situation where these things prevail. I just feel by looking at this, it looks as if a lot of it is being put on individuals, on council workers, on people who are going to deliver these extremely laudable aims, and I don't see much resource coming in for training and dealing with staff stress, although I'm sure you'll tell me there are. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Brock. I think the angle really that this is trying to get at is that the council is everybody's responsibility. Everybody takes ownership of everything that's happening in the council. It's not just side off to these people. It's everybody is joining in. It's a sort of one team approach. As for the other punishment, I think it's really important in HR matters. So if I can pass you over to Georgie, and she can respond on our behalf.
Yeah, as you said, we can't ignore the impacts of asking people to work in different ways on health and wellbeing, and we are continuing to invest time, resources, money in people's wellbeing. That's not going to change. We've just achieved the Bronze Medal Thrive accreditation, which is a regional recognition of our work around health and wellbeing, and we're towards that. So the savings here are more around how we work differently, more efficiently, also maximising the ability of individuals where generation is part of the role to actually make sure that we're doing that to the best of our ability. But within these budgets, there's also some investment in we have a workforce strategy in development, and a huge part of that is actually thinking about how we work with people through different parts of their career journeys, entry-level posts, and how we work with apprenticeships and new starters and building roles and building capability there, but also helping people diversify and change roles and supporting real-time leadership capability for the future as well. So that's investment in people is really part of this, but I think that the savings element comes out of how we work rather than the well-being element.
Do you have a follow-up, Councillor Brocky?
Oh, I'm afraid so. It's the objectives are fine and obviously are being put into place because there is a need for staff support and it has been identified and dealt with. But the level of staff sickness, which is quite regrettable, and obviously is reducing slightly as a result of other means of displacing staff, this kind of other means. It's not that the figures are being disguised in any way, but the level of staff sickness is, as with many other sort of modes of operation, it is not as good as it should be. The level of controlling absence, and I think the problem is that if people are presented with things they're not prepared because there isn't the money to train, to support. The money has gone very much into working out schemes of redistributing work and making work more efficient. As with the private sector, as with any sector, if you give people things that they can't do or don't want to do or feel that they're being made to do, then obviously they're going to go sick. And it worries me that 2 out of 4, wasn't it, things here focused on in staffing related one council. The one council thing is such a good idea. Other authorities are doing it, but in our case, it does not seem to be resulting in more efficient services or happier staff. They're still grumpy.
I would actually dispute that six are coming down. That's partly due to six action plans we discussed here previously. I think we're due to bring back in coming months. So that sickness is being managed and it is coming down. We've got no evidence to say that any absences is directly due to any of the work we do around the changes or asking people to work in a different way. As I said, we've just received the Thrive accreditation, and also we have just closed our staff survey, which we need to analyse in further depth. But the initial results of that are showing very, very positive outcomes. We've had a much higher response rate than we have in previous years, and actually people are reporting they're feeling very happy in work and very supported. We also do a lot of work around understanding the reasons for people leaving. We do work on exit interviews, understanding why people are choosing to go. And again, the outcomes of those interventions are showing that actually people aren't leaving because they are miserable or overworked or stressed. Our highest reasons for leaving is retirement.
Thanks, I'll leave it there.
Lovely. Councillor Stubbs.
Chair, with your permission, I'll dip in and out for I've got 15 questions for all that. It might be that some report itself, page 15, item 9.2. What Volleyholder expand on what he believes is meant by that paragraph? What actual stock can we put in this report if it doesn't pass a robustness test?
I think in answer to your question, I've got Craig sitting next to me who's produced these figures. Obviously Sarah's his manager, and these are two professional people, and if this is their opinion and these assumptions are realistic, then I'm prepared to go along with that. I don't really think, the side come when the fire service here the other week, and these professional firefighters, they know what they're doing. And I think these are professional accountants we've got, who again know what they're doing. So I would say that was the reason.
I've worked with both officers, councillor, and it's not a disparagement on them at all. But why is the paragraph there if you're not going to, it actually says the robustness of this report cannot be confirmed until the February the 6th meeting at Cabinet and the 14th of February on 24. So why publish a report if it's not robust? If you cannot say that this report is robust, you have to put in a paragraph to say that we cannot approve that. Why is that paragraph there?
I'll ask Councillor Sweeney to respond in a moment, but as a committee, we are given the best possible opportunities to scrutinise a process that is ongoing. We know the budget setting, including financial strategy, the capital programme, all of the work that the council does over a year to get to a balanced budget, which we'll vote on, takes them all year to do. So it's very surprising to me if any council, anywhere, can have a 100% accurate, watertight, robust report at this stage of the financial cycle. So I'll be interested in hearing some more specific constructive criticism from you, Councillor Stubbs, if you've got anything in the report that you'd like to challenge the robustness of. Bearing that in mind, I will ask Councillor Sweeney to respond because the council's put the question to him.
Thank you, John. I'll pass over to Mr. Turner, really. I think it's fair. I would just to reiterate what you just said. Mr. Turner's got to handle.
Thanks, Councillor Sweeney. Thanks, Councillor Stubbs. At the current time, there are a number of assumptions that are draft, and those include the settlements that we'll hopefully be receiving next week from the government. And depending on that, how that is, there are assumptions at the moment are that will be pretty much in line with what we've got in this report. That will then affect future reports. So if everything's exactly as it is now, the reports that you receive in January to scrutinise will largely be in line with this. But the paragraph's just in there to say to yourselves that there's a small chance that these assumptions may change. That's all. Thank you.
I think this is very much a work in progress. This is just the first stage of it. The final one will be at the end. This is still where we are at the moment, and things could change. Like Craig says, we haven't got the final figure yet, so we don't know. So this is a work in progress, which is what we do every year. There's nothing changed. As I say, we don't have secrets or anything in this council. So what you see, what you get.
Thank you very much. In that case, would anyone else like to guess what Councillor Stubbs' other questions are? Because if you ask them first, you won't have to. Otherwise, we've got 15 minutes. Councillor Grocott.
Thank you, Chair. My question actually is based on the pay awards actually. Basically, most places I've seen are between 4 and 4.5%. So I'm just wondering why we've actually allocated 3.5% on the pay award scheme on that one. So obviously we know last time we were out. And the second one is just obviously on capital receipts, obviously that's based on knowledge at the moment. We're just wondering how far we may be with that. I think that can have gone in place. That is quite a substantial and accurate figure. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Grocott. Regarding the pay award, we've increased that from 3% to 3.5%. That was after some benchmarking that we've done with the other statutory authorities and the police and fire. So that's largely in line with what everyone else is assuming. Regarding capital receipts, then there's a mixture in there of some definites that we know have happened already in 23-24, and then there is some assumptions in there. And we can provide the assumptions in a bit more detail in January. That's all right with yourselves.
That's absolutely fine. Thank you very much.
Councillor Grocott. Would anyone who's not already asked a question like to go, or should we go back to Councillor Stubbs? Councillor Stubbs, let's have a go.
I'm sorry, Chair. Appendix A, item I1, I understand the percentage increases are a national, it's the planning costs that are going up. But can we get a split of how many applications by major and minor we'd have to process to sustain a 192,000 uplift? Is that based on standing still on applications, or is that based on an increase in applications as well as the percentage increase?
Thanks, Councillor Stubbs. That's based on us standing still. So that's just applying the increase to our current budget.
Item I6 is the VAT on leisure income. Can the finance officer explain or expand really, because we can see what the one sentence is, but can you give us a bit more of what that actually is?
Of course. So there's been a change in VAT legislation for all councils to do with leisure fees. Previously, just as an example, if you were a member at Newcastle and you paid a £30 gym fee, £5 of that would go to the VAT man. And £25 would be retained by the council. The new regulations have determined that VAT shouldn't be paid on £30. So all of the £30 is then retained by the council. So that 120,000 is based on what we're currently taking in membership fees. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you, Chair. I8, commercial property rent. What is the average percentage increase of rent and how prudent is that figure? I mean, it talks about rent reviews, which is, I suggest means that they're going to be uplifted. Or I don't expect every single one, but what's an average rent increase across our portfolio?
Yeah, that's fine. I can answer that myself. That's right. We currently take around 900 and something thousand for commercial rent, so that's about a 7% rise. The 70,000 is based on what we've already achieved this year, so it's pretty much in the bag. Prudency-wise, it's really prudent. It's only going to be higher than that figure, I would imagine. Thank you.
I-10, which is the car parking, how credible is the 91,000 figure? What basis is this figure based on? Is it based on expected usage or expected memberships, etc.?
I'll have a quick go and then hopefully Simon can jump in if needed. That's based on a small increased usage and a small increased fee. It's just basically we're only understanding that more people will come in and use a better facility. Really.
That's your answer to that. No, nothing further else.
Okay, 01, which is the one council line. It's 230,000 of further efficiencies. Is there a breakdown of what these further efficiencies are?
If I can pass you over to Georgie, who's the one council free.
I'm going to take that as a new job title. This is based on sorry, continuing our performance management. So at the moment we're working on sort of team service level performance management. And it's taking it down and look at sort of roles and responsibilities across the council, making sure that those roles are designed in a way that actually maximises the impact of those roles really. And the 230 come from the view that studies have shown that around 4% in any organisation of staff aren't working in a way that maximises their efficiency. That's not necessarily because they haven't got the capability, perhaps those roles aren't shaped in that way. So that assumption was made. So 4% was at 50% efficiency over 12 million staffing budget, results in around about 230. But as I said before, it's based on a number of different elements in terms of action. That could be income generation, that could be changing roles, that could be working better across services and taking that waste into those positions. So it's a continuation of the principles that we've taken from one council.
Thank you. S5. Professional fees. Can you explain more about the capitalisation of professional fees? I've done some homework and I can see that the accounting standards allow for fees to be included when acquisition, disposal or modifications, but it doesn't mention new builds. I'm wondering how we're going to capitalise things and still meet the international standards.
Yes, so new builds will be included in capital expenditure. So this is based on our landscape team. A lot of the work that the landscape team does is around capital projects. So it's based on an element of their time being capitalised in new builds and acquisitions and disposals, and also in terms of them getting other fees in for other projects that they're involved in, and in terms of going out and doing research around extra grants. So this is effectively trying to get those posts self-funding.
My understanding of the rule is though that new builds are not included in this. It has to be one of the three: an acquisition, a disposal, or a modification. A new build is different. It's got different IFS that run it. Yeah. Yeah.
If we were building something ourselves, then we can capitalise professional fees for our staff.
Through you, Chair, can we get that document that you're referring to, the standard? Because my reading of the standard doesn't include new builds. It only includes the three things that I've said. Well, that's absolutely fine.
Okay. Shall we, at the next committee, have a brief written item to confirm that? Is that okay? So next committee agenda, under the report from Cabinet, we'll have that written down and have another chance to ask questions about it if you have a follow-up with the sales. Further questions.
G3, which is the reduction of the subsidy. Can we have a breakdown to how the 175,000 is formulated? Where the bulk of the savings come from? Are they savings in staff? Are they increases in fees and charges? can we get a breakdown of what that 175,000 additional income is?
Yeah, I can give you a brief breakdown if you want anything further. We can find that. 156,000 of it is pretty much income, so it's new income streams and some increases in fees and charges that are above the 4% that we've included in the NTFS. Those increases in income have been derived from a benchmarking exercise that's been done with both other local authorities and our private competitors to try and bring our fees much more in line with those that we compete with. Then the remaining 19,000 is from some revisions that we're going to be doing to staffing rotas. So nobody's going to be having any hours reduced. It's just more effective use. That sometimes, I think at J2, there are more people on the rota currently than are actually needed. And at later times in the day, we're pretty much down to a skeleton staff, so stretching that out. And that also results in some savings around shift allowances.
Thank you. G6, which is the vacancy factor. Now, any accountant in the room knows that's a sleight of hand. I've used it myself on many occasions. How can we justify a 75% increase in what we are taking from each and every department to fund basically the vacancy factor?
I can justify it pretty easily. Council stops. Our current vacancy factor is close to 8%. So in terms of people leaving the vacancy period, it's at about 8% of our staffing budget. So if we left it at 2%, then we're over providing basically on our employee budgets. So by increasing it by a small amount to 3.5%, it helps.
5% increase then.
Well, it depends how you want to break out percentages, doesn't it? 2% to 3.5% to me is 1.5%.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You can use that how you wish.
I can help.
Yeah. So by bringing it up to 3.5%, we're still less than half of what our current vacancy factor is.
Thank you. And the last one on Appendix A. A4, which is the minimum funding guarantee. What likelihood is this being a regular, or is this a one-off for this year? I think I've noticed in the budget it's not something, but is it something that we might want to depend on going forward?
We received minimum funding guarantee this financial year. It will be received next year. The assumption there that we will receive 500,000 is based on the assumption that we had at the current time of writing this report that new homes bonus wasn't going to continue, but new homes bonus is going to continue. So that will substitute for that 500. It's not going to be an extra 500, it's just a substitute. All of our indications are that the minimum funding guarantee will remain in place until the fair funding review happens.
Okay. Moving on to Appendix C, and you've answered the question on the 3.5%. The borrowing costs, are they viable? Is it 1.15 million over the 5 years? Does that sound right? Is that viable for a council this size to find those additional revenue costs?
In my opinion, yes. We've balanced the budget. Well, our current draft proposals for the gap for 24-25 include putting nearly £500,000 worth of borrowing costs in, so we've been able to balance that. Next year there's a £1.5 million gap overall, and I think our track history says that we're well capable of generating such savings. There's another £500,000 there in borrowing costs next year as well. So, yes, in my opinion.
Moving on to the MTFS itself, a fair financial settlement for Newcastle and Lyme. The paragraph 2.15, 2.16, and in fact all the way through to 2.19 talks about the failure of government to look at the business retention model not being updated. What steps has the portfolio holder taken bringing this to the attention of central government?
I wrote to the Prime Minister a few weeks ago about financial pressures that all councils, just to put our sort of mark in the sand, if you like, we did that. But as the rest of the stuff, I'll pass you paper. You tell us about. There you go.
So business rates retention will be reviewed as part of the funding review. We've had a little indication in the last couple of weeks that that will probably be in 2025, 26 or 2026, 27. As it says in those paragraphs that you've read, we do very well out of the business rates retention system at the moment, and our funding is in excess of what the government gives us as a baseline. So the MTFS that you just referred to at Appendix C, and there's a line towards the very bottom of it called business rates retention funding, and we've put a £500,000 pressure in for 3 years to allow for our funding to reduce by about £1.5 million. So it's well on our radar, I think it's fair to say. Thanks.
That's everything in this report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stubbs. No, those were very good questions. I'm reassured, I think, listening to the answers, that some of the robustness is there. Certainly everything that was drawn upon, everything that was drawn to officers' attention, they did have an answer. Does anybody else, would any other members like to comment on any of those, or raise a different line item? If not, we can move on. Councillor Sweeney.
Yeah, I think Craig here has given a perfect example of why the accounts team works so well, because there were challenging questions from Councillor Stubbs, and I think Craig got an answer for every single one of them, weren't you? Like I said, Craig is a professional who I trust implicitly as I do with Sarah. So very well done, Craig. A couple of things I can say is that we're looking for balance outturn this year, and we've provisionally set our budget for next year. And I'm prepared to bet there's an awful lot of authorities in Staffordshire who would like to be in our position at this moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sweeney. In that case, we'll draw a conclusion to that item. As we've heard, the council will get its local government financial settlement in the very near future. A lot of the assumptions on which this report was based will be confirmed by the time we look at this again next. Item number 5 then is the financial and performance review report for the second quarter, commencing at page 39. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to introduce the report on the?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Again, this is one of the drawbacks of this committee, because it's so much out of sync, because this is the second quarter, and the third quarter ends the end of this month, so it's already out of date. But that's the way the pattern works, so there's nothing to do about it. In accordance with the Council's financial procedure rules and recommended good practice, a quarterly financial report is presented to the members. This is the second report for 23-24 and ended in September. The Council approved a general fund revenue budget of 16.857 million on 15th of February 23. For 23-24, the actual and forecast position compared to this budget is continuously monitored by budget holders, the corporate leadership team and portfolio holder, in order to protect any significant variances of expenditure or income from the approved amounts contained in the budget. At the close of quarter 2, a positive variance of £7,000 has been achieved. The projected outturn on the general fund revenue account for the year is 16.836 million. This represents a positive outturn of 0.021 million for the year. A number of adverse variances have occurred: income shortfalls for sales fees and charges, a shortfall of 200,000 in housing benefits, the provision of temporary accommodation for the homeless and vulnerable amounts to 61,000. Holding costs for York Place, e.g. utilities and business rates, are expected to amount to 169,000 for the financial year, the amount. A pay award that is forecast to be in excess of the amount provided in the budget, including national insurance and pension. Additional amount is forecast to total 200,000 at the close of Q2. These variances have been offset in full by the following: utilisation of the cost of living reserve that was established during the budget setting for 2023-24 in order to respond to any above inflationary increase in costs. This will be fully used to offset the forecast pay award at the close of Q2, and £400,000 for the financial year. Interest receivable on cash that the council holds in terms of town deal and future high street funding, together with section 31 granted remaining current coronavirus grant funding that are payable to central government, total 600,000. In Q2, following recent interest rate hikes, it's forecast this will grow to 1.13 million of income by the close of the financial year. The report also details the positive progress of the efficiency and savings plan for 2023-24 and progress of the capital programme major projects, including the town deals, future high streets and shared prosperity fund. Finally, the report presents a summary of treasury activity, from which interest over 600,000 has been generated during the first 2 quarters, and the collection of business rates and council tax, both of which are largely in line with the expectations of the year. That was prepared when this report was first done. As I said, it's nearly 3 months after date, but we're still looking to have a balance out at the end of the year. And £7,000 out at halfway through is a pretty fair achievement. Thank you, John.
Thanks to the portfolio holder for that. As mentioned, it's a little bit stale, the data, but if members wanted to, we could meet twice as many times a year. We could have 8 meetings. If anybody wants to move that as a motion, they'd be very welcome. Would anyone like to make any comments or ask any questions on the report, first of all, and then we'll move on to the shiny, colourful performance indicators. Appendix A first. Councillor Stubbs.
Be careful making promises that you can't keep. More than happy to sit here and do plenty of financial scrutiny, Chair.
I love it.
With regards, and you sort of already covered some of it, Councillor, but what has been done with regard to the forecast for 400,000, and that might be more, with regard to housing benefits subsidy, and 122,000 with regard to the temporary accommodation? What steps are we taking? What can we do to minimise that effect?
Looking like the Prime Minister, but I'll pass over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Regarding the housing benefit shortfall, so that's mainly around supported accommodation. So at the moment, there's a lot of challenge getting back to providing supported accommodation because we continually see increases in rents and the charges. That's a starting point with that. As Councillor Sweeney said, we've written to the government, and we've also included, there's a 425,000 pressure in the budget for 2024-25 that will help to alleviate that. But the answer isn't just putting the pressure into the budget all the time. It's very much some challenge both to government and both to providers of the service. We also have a working group that meets every 2 months to discuss options around supported and temporary accommodation. So there's a number of options being looked at, including renting from Aspire, renting from private landlords, and absolutely looking at some of our own accommodation as well.
Just before I ask the next question, can those letters to government be published if only to this committee? I mean, the public documents, so I'd like to think they can be.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Should we just make a note that that will appear in the paperwork for our next meeting?
That's fine. I think the finance officer's already covered this to a point. The pay awards, and I keep hearing that we benchmark against the against the authorities within the county, and yet several of those councils did have higher payroll built into their budgets for last year. are we sure, and I know you've sort of answered this already, but are we sure that the 3.5% plus 1925 per employee is going to be enough?
Okay, so the pay award, the two elements of this, there's the current year, which has been settled, and there's enough money in the cost of living to cover that. In terms of next year and future years, then we've increased the assumption. It's still an estimate. It is in line with the other statutory authorities. But with every estimate, there's a chance that it may be too high, it may be too low. A lot will depend on the economy of the country, which is where inflation goes, I think, over the next few months.
I mean, fully accept that. I think all the committee asks really is that we're prudent. It's, if anything, I'd rather us be too high and make a gain than not. And actually, Councillor mentioned this. Can I just congratulate the staff on the collection rates? It cannot be easy at the moment, and I noticed that both collection rates were actually above what we'd forecast. So, you know, please pass on my thanks to the teams that have done that, because it's probably not the nicest work to do, but it's vital for the authority that we're bringing in what we're owed. Thank you.
I think that's noted by our officers. Thanks for that, Councillor Stokes. Do you have any further questions on the standing report? Okay. In that case, does anybody else have any questions on things there? Councillor Rocott.
Yeah, just a quick one, Chair. Obviously, looking at 4.9 and Chapel Valley West, notice the award has been totally spent. Obviously, there's been problems down there with the developers, if I'm not wrong. Unless I'm getting mixed up with the thing. So I'm just wondering, is that now a true record, or do you need to put something else into that?
That's right, Chair. The money that we contributed to Chapel Valley West was through a grant agreement from the town's deal, and we had to get the work done through Staffordshire County Council Highways, and they insisted that the developer pay the money up front and then the money be released to the contractor through Staffordshire Council, so the money has left our bank accounts, and the award we gave them is the total award, and there is no date to come back for action.
That's fine, thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. Councillor Brocky.
I'm looking at Appendix B, item 5, and I recognise that this is a provisional report, and that obviously any improvements or increases in savings that are suggested will be taken up. So I'm not assuming that this is anything other than a work in progress. But phrases like progressing as expected, continuing to work with key partners. Obviously, this doesn't mean that nothing's been done. Clearly, there's a lot of hard work going on with this, and I can understand the frustration of working with key partners, because when you mention there's government money slushing around somewhere, even if it's not a lot, developers will be around like bees around a honeypot. So sorting out the ones that are any good to the ones that aren't going to be any good is hard work. And so far, we have no reason to suppose that the current procurement is anything other than safe. But the last I heard, the developers concerned are looking into the feasibility of some of the projects, the Big Town Centre project and the Kidsgrove project. But there is the provision that if phase 1 doesn't work out, we can walk away from it. And I think that the problem with the fact that it is a provisional report and it is about finance, not about the environmental and social implications. In the event of the volatile borrowing situation, which all councils have, and the fact that some of these projects do appear, certainly to the public, to be dragging their feet, at what stage can we actually identify commitment from these developers? I mean, clearly we're not fortune tellers, but it's not very reassuring to hear, even at this rather provisional stage, that we're continuing to work with, progressing, continuing to work with. define progressing. I mean, progressing can be fast, slow, or indeterminate, or whatever. It doesn't really tell me much as a member of the public reading this and as councillor reading this. It simply says that there are lots of plates spinning in the air. If the early stages and the feasibility studies did come up with the potential negative outcome or perhaps non-viability of some of these things, is there the scope to scale them back in line with what Newcastle probably can cope with financially and socially? Thank you.
You're coming, Councillor Brockett. Just for clarity, because I'm lost, what part of the report were you referring to?
Item 5, Appendix B, which is where the portfolio holder is, you know.
The performance indicators.
Yeah,
Yes, you're looking at the indicators. That's okay, I was making sure that that's
yeah,
what
that's okay. Just simply flagging up the provisional nature of these things is fine because it's a provisional report and we're here to look at it. But it does appear to be vague in the sense of the kind of progress being made, the speed at which it's being made and the intended outcomes. Thank you.
Simon.
Thank you, Chair. The performance management report isn't a provisional report like the finance report previously. The performance report is actually the performance that has been achieved, so they are true figures for clarity. The second question was around progress. Progress is being made, but I'll link it to the final comment you made about scaling things back. If you remember when we discussed this many times before, we were worried about the cost of some of these projects being escalating out of control or financially becoming viable. And that's why we did take a step back and we have scaled back the schemes and we have got youth developer partners and professional teams looking into that, into our projects now to deliver a quality product but at a smaller budget because that's really affordable. And so things like instead of demolishing the whole of your place, we're proposing to retain the foundation, not the frame, the concrete frame and build around that. Similar, instead of demolishing midway, we'll be retaining the concrete frame building around that, all with a view to reducing costs, etc. And yes, these things do take time. You'll notice that it's taken us nearly 3 years to get the car park services. But that is part of a process where we don't award a contract to a contractor to build until we're absolutely certain. And as I've explained before, we award packages of work to our consultants and contractors to make sure that every step of the way we're getting as much information as we can to make a decision about viability and feasibility and affordability at every stage. So traditionally, we design everything, you get a bill of quantities put together by a quantity surveyor, you go out to the market and you get all the contractors to price it, and then you go, well, that's a bit expensive, isn't it? We have to put it back. By doing it through a design and build and the frameworks that we're working through, where we engage early with the contractor, we're ensuring we get efficiency of cost and design, but also we don't award the final building contract so we're absolutely certain we've got the best in. And that is why there is perception out there that your place and Midway haven't progressed, but Midway can't progress because we haven't built the car park yet, so we'll be closing that after the car park's open. We're waiting for the final 2 tenants to leave your place. That has actually been a very quick decanting of the tenants from that building, and we're hoping that we will be starting the demolition, the partial demolition, because we want to retain the concrete frame early in the new year with a view to getting back on site or onto site to start to build as quickly as we can. But if when the consultants come back with costs, they're unaffordable or they're unviable or we don't get planning, for example, we can always pull the plug and stop because we haven't awarded the final contract phases.
Thank you for that. Very reassuring, actually. Very reassuring. And that's not a sarcastic comment. It's very worrying to the public when they see reports, obviously meant to attract attention, but they don't see the detail. And obviously, when we get specific complaints as ward councillors, we need to be on top of the detail and to be able to give answers without giving away false hope or even false despair. But there's a lot of despair about the town centre projects, and obviously it's reassuring to know that these are being continually monitored. And thank you for the full answer. I do not like procurement frameworks. I think we've had this conversation before. They cost a lot of money, but it may be that time will tell that it's been worth the expense, and it's worthwhile flagging it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that, Councillor Brocky. Councillor Paul Herring.
Thank you, Chair. Just what I hope will be a relatively quick question. I'm looking at page 48, item 4.9. Obviously that refers to our project in Kidsgrove, and I note that at the bottom the project management is all lumped into one. I just wondered whether there was a breakdown anywhere that split that between the different work items, and given that we've spent 90% of it to date, I know that there are elements that don't require a great deal of project management. They're still to come. But I just wondered whether that £62,000 would be sufficient to take us up to completion. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll try that. We can get you a breakdown, that's no problem. But if you remember from the Kidsgrove town deal projects, most of the projects now are being handed over to other people. So the Network Rail will be getting the station, the Canal Trust will be getting the canal works. The rest of the projects, we already do Chatty Valley and the Sports Centre. So it's just a shared service hub, and we're quite confident that we have enough internal resource and that figure to deliver that scheme.
But that's fine. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Councillor Waring. If we looked at the report itself adequately, I was going to suggest we move on to the indicators, but did you have a report on question on the report on the first appendix, Councillor Stubbs? Go ahead.
Yeah, just expanding on what Councillor Waring does. I believe in the report, I can't find it off the top of my head. It mentions the delay at the station due to the car park and arguments over cost. Has the issue of the bridge been sorted as well? That's not mentioned in the report. So the bridge, obviously, I think it's the responsibility of the Canal and River Trust, and they aren't going to have the money to strengthen that bridge or replace that bridge. So has that come anywhere near to being resolved?
The costs are being reviewed by Network Rail and Department for Transport, and we are awaiting some feedback on that. It is at government level, and Jonathan Dulles is working hard behind the scenes to try and get some resolution to it, because it's above all of our pay grades at the moment, because it's such a large problem to sort.
Well, that's all sorted if anyone can. Hey, Councillor Paul Herring.
Yeah, thanks. Just on what Mike was just saying, I thought the bridge strengthening had already taken place. The issues that are outstanding, I don't think are in relation to the strength of the bridge. I might be wrong.
We can ask for a written update if that's helpful to members. If it's possible, rather than holding on to that for the next meeting, and would our officers be happy just to send around to members of this committee a proper update on the bridge where we are with it? Thank you. We'll move on then. We will look at the performance indicators. What I normally do is scroll through the red ones, but would anyone like to suggest any particular indicators to look at? First of all, Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, I'm only going to do the same, so you were going to do. With regard to the sickness absence, obviously the officer went through this a little bit before, but just getting to the report itself, it mentions, just bear with me, that we are formulating a plan, basically. We've been formulating a plan for 12 months. If we look at the last 4 of these reports, they will all say exactly the same. We are formulating a plan, we're going to bring this down. Now, I see that it's come down 1 month. We cannot have our staff taking the number of sick days they are having. It cannot be good to them, it cannot be good for us. And when we are losing people to sickness, that means that other people have to pick up that work. We've already had tonight from finance officer saying that we've got a vacancy rate of around 8%. Is that right? So that means we're already operating below what we think we need. Now, there's always going to be a vacancy rate, I understand that, but nearly 1 in 10 of our staff are not, or our posts are not staffed, just short. We've got sickness levels that are basically suggesting on a full-time equivalent, every member of staff is having 1 sick day a month. And we cannot operate like that. There has got to be something done. So this report says there is a plan. Can we please implement that plan and start seeing that figure coming down? Because my concern for the staff, and it is the staff I'm concerned about, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I don't feel like we are gripping this, because this report's been coming to us in its various guises for a long time, and that figure has been high. And it's, you know, coming down 0.1, 0.2 is not enough. It needs to be coming down by half, at least, over the next 12 months. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. I think the portfolio holder and our officers will know that until the number does come down, we're going to continue pressing on this matter because it is an important issue. I know we did receive quite a detailed report 2 meetings ago on staff sickness, but would George, you like to comment at this point on the comment that Councillor Stubbs has made?
Yeah, on a couple of notes. So the report says we are implementing the plan, so we are not still formulating the plan. That plan has been formulated and discussed a couple of meetings ago, and that plan is going. So this data is a couple of months old now. When we look at the new data that's come through for November, the sickness rates have gone down again. So that's a sort of continuous trajectory on the right level, and it's those long-term sicknesses that are coming down. And actually, at this time of the year, you normally expect the sickness rates to be going up. So the fact that we are making progress even at this time of the year when people are confident, sort of including myself, you know, this is a positive story for us, and we're not going to stop. We are not resting on the laurels and just thinking, you know, this is just something that we're happy with. We will continue to work on this. We're going through a tender process with an occupational health service. We are looking at the budget to consider you know, additional health cash plans, etc., for staff in the coming years. So there are all these things that are in the plan that we are working on, and it is working. But I absolutely agree with you. We can't say it's okay because it's not what we want to do.
Thanks very much for that. I don't propose to go into more detail than that, Councillor Stubbs, because we have done it quite recently. We will consider that as a future meeting. Let's move on then to another indicator. The next one I've got that's rated red is the total number of digital online transactions. I don't see Councillor Tagg's portfolio, but would you like to comment, Councillor Sweeney? Somebody has to ask the question. Some people have to answer. Go ahead.
Comment for Councillor Sweeney. Thank you. So we recently moved over to a new module within our Citizens Access, which was a planned procedure, at which time we had to transition from the existing process, which was a standardised form on our website. Whilst we transitioned to the new module and worked with the supplier to bring that up to speed, there was a slight downwards trend in terms of what completed. However, we're having this year, month on month now, will be actually an upwards trajectory and actually allow our officers to deal with those cases coming in a much more streamlined approach in terms of that particular module. So that's why there was a slight downwards trend in terms of ongoing on from previous months. But we're confident that will be up in the next coming quarter.
Thanks very much for the answer. It's the trend rather than the overall numbers. I think you can see from the report because we're not that far off the target in terms of numerical transactions, and the reason has been given for that. Next one on the following page then is household collections from the curbside. Who wants to have a go at that? It's not popular now. Go on then.
No, Georgie. No, Georgie.
This is the everyone accountable culture.
Yes.
Everyone is
Apologies. It's not my area. I'm saying that. I know. Well, I'm trying to think of what to say next.
What did you say to cabinet?
David Hutchinson did the high sat news. As it says here, the recycling rates are going down because people aren't spending as much money on stuff that they then recycle, etc. Whilst this is only slightly off target, the service is hopeful that it will increase again. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm just going to start talking nonsense. That's the best I can do. Georgie, would you like to step in at that point?
Well, if members would like to hear more on that, if it is a concern, I'm sure that they will request a report in due course and perhaps even get, we don't often see David Hutchinson here, I'm commonly going to see Councillor Sweeney and Councillor Tagg reporting to this committee about any concerns raised now or indeed later. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, I actually think that it's a good thing. You know, it means that people are using less recyclable packaging and probably less packaging overall, because if the actual volume of waste hasn't increased on the other side, then that means that overall the waste is coming down, and it just means that less people are perhaps eating at McDonald's or whatever, and maybe eating food that doesn't come in packaging. So
A very positive loss indeed. Next one I've got there is the number of missed curbside collections. That is also off target at the moment, negative year. The trend, sorry?
Trend is positive.
Oh, so the trend is positive. There we go. Is that your answer?
That's the question.
Oh Lord. The question is, we've got a red rated target in front of us. We'd like to apply just a little scrutiny on it. Is there any reassurance you can give us, George?
Yes, so again, this is working on quite old data, and there was a signal book going around at the depot pointed to this being this data being collected, and I think that was impacting on the collection rate. Again, as with the old confidence, will change in the next report.
Thank you. And it does underscore the concern that this committee's expressed very recently about this absence and the way it sort of impacts our residents and our taxpayers as well as the workforce. So we will look forward to seeing more positive numbers in the future. I think that's the last of the ones that are rated red. So if anyone would like to raise any of the other indicators, we can have a dive into those if you want. Otherwise, we will draw a conclusion to that item. Thank you very much, and thanks, officers, for answering those questions under duress. The next item on our agenda is the Town Deal and Future High Street Funds update. This is the same report, I think, that went to the Economic Scrutiny Committee. So it has been scrutinised from that angle already. It's very important. We're getting the opportunity to do the same. And I know the members of this committee have asked for more detail on the progress of the town deals in particular. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to introduce the item?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. This, as you say, is the same report that went to the Economic Development last week. They wanted us to do it a paragraph at a time and work through the report like that. That was where they wanted to do it. If you let us know how you want to do it tonight, we can either do the same way or we can just take questions off people, whichever you prefer.
This committee takes a holistic attitude to all matters. Therefore, I will open it up for councillors to ask on any item that appears under the report, just make clear which point you're raising in the report when you speak. Would anyone like to ask any questions of this? I'll give councillors a moment just to read. If not, this has been scrutinised as another committee. We will, of course, be hearing again about progress updates. And if you think of anything after the meeting, please do get in touch with officers or indeed portfolio holder who will be working solidly throughout the Christmas and New Year period, both night and day. Councillor Palmer.
yeah, just in relation to Chatley Valley, we know that there's been some delays on it. How far behind is that project likely to be at completion, do you think? Thanks.
Chair and Councillor. It's hard to determine what the actual delay will be. They've got A now doing the infrastructure works on the road and the roundabout at the entrance, etc. And they're probably about 4 months behind that, but the site wasn't due to be opened anyway, so the delay to the site works is probably around 6 months because they've had to go and find another contractor to do the earthworks, etc. And they've just appointed those that company who you just don't move mud around in the winter, so they'll wait until the spring. So we're waiting for a final estimate of what that delay will be, but the fact that the site wasn't going to be developed until later next year anyway, it's hard to determine whether they'll be able to bring it forward or not. So some of the platforms are ready to be built and ready to be worked on, but they were never going to be brought to market or built upon before this period anyway. So it's a hard one to say, but the roadworks are around 4 months behind, which is the only real tangible thing we have at the moment.
Thank you.
Sorry, just on that, they had a road closure for an 18-month period, so the road isn't going to be, the road can be closed for quite a long period afterwards, so it's not like they're running out of time. The legal documentation they've got, they're still working within the road closure that they've got.
Thank you for the answer. Councillor Stokes.
Sorry, great answer. I should know this, but you say it's 4 months behind. When should it have been? So what was the date that you were working to?
The contractor, the developer and the contractor were working to having it finished this side of Christmas or January time, but they, as you know, they went bust in September. The contractor went bust in September, so it was due to be finished around now, January time. And it'll be probably March, April before it's finished.
There's at least 2 councillors sitting here that would really like it to be as quickly as possible. It's the biggest thing that I'm getting about the access to that road. So thank you.
Thanks very much for that. Councillor Brocky.
Obviously, the development of an industrial park up there is meant to generate money because it's revenue for the council, and it's just a good thing to encourage business. One of the names put forward, obviously, is Lucidium, where there's been an ongoing series of negotiating meetings with the county council and with ourselves. And obviously this is speculative at the moment because they don't seem to have to be in a position to do other than consider it as an option. Given that if they did come and they had purpose-built units, which would be absolutely fantastic, if anything happened in some years' time or they relocated, what would we do with the units? Because if we're building this and building the infrastructure and the roads in order to get people to go in fair amount of volume to these units and to hire them or to rent them out or whatever it is, it's for money. It's not really just for employment. It's for money. They will bring jobs, and for once, I'm not going to say that's a bad thing to do. Building things to get money is a good thing. But how stable is the situation at the moment? Because if we go ahead with paying, obviously, for the infrastructure and the roads and what have you, we've obviously got to cough up for those. And then we're coughing up for the building of the actual units that we're going to rent commercially out. And then whoever takes over the major part of the project coughs up for that, or provisionally coughs up for it, or pays us rent for it. The future of it doesn't seem to have been looked at too closely. And I'm worried about Lucidium because they've got so many business interests. They've got interest in Japan, they're expanding in stone down there. They've got a lovely place down there, I've seen it. They don't seem to be focusing on us. And if we're doing these infrastructure projects in order to get this particular unit, which would be a really good thing, up and running, and then it doesn't, what are the contingency plans to create more universal units, units with more diversity of purpose, so that we can rent those out? Because otherwise we spend a lot of money where we've already got occupied units of a standard type. in other areas. Where's the contingency plan if the big project doesn't come on?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Just so I can get some highlighting principles around the whole Chatterley Valley. The town deal funding is contributing to the developer's costs of providing the infrastructure. We are not putting money into the development of the platforms or the road, etc. That's all being funded through Harworth and with a small contribution from County Council. Yes, I am sure, because town deal are only putting in money for the gas diversion, main diversion, and the roundabout onto the site. The rest of the site is being funded by Harworth and with a small contribution from County Council. Lucidian is one of several plots on site. We will only be taking forward the Lucidian project once we get a signed heads of terms with them and an agreement to lease, as we've done with many of our projects, and we've done with the Sports Centre in Kidsgrove, as we've promised not to build the shared service hub or the village hall in Nutton unless we have an end user signed up, and then we will then sign a building contract. The recent press release where Lucy Dean referred to options, I think is what you were talking about. The options are as for where they're staying at the moment, but the unit they have in Stowe is a temporary unit because they are expanding, hence the need for the building that we are providing in Chatterley Valley. Yes, it is bespoke, but it is one building shed that can be stripped back to just a shed. We will be taking a very long lease with them with suitable break clauses as they would expect. But it is not a 5-year deal where we spend upwards of 20+ million. But also the last cabinet took papers through before we even get to that point, we want our financial advisors and treasury management to review that deal and sign it off as a viable investment opportunity. In terms of the other units that are going on the site, Harworth will be developing, and once they get an end user themselves, but we are also looking at taking on another plot within the site, which we will be breaking down into 6 smaller units, because what we're finding with the units we've got at the moment, the size of them, there's no stepping stone for those businesses to grow into in our borough. They can go elsewhere. But if they've got a 1,000-2,000 square feet and they want to 5,000 or 10,000, we don't have that type of facility on our books. And we believe through market analysis and investigation that if we provide that stepping stone up to between the very small to the medium to large, we've got an opportunity for businesses to grow, but also there'll be businesses that want to come and sit alongside or near Lucidian because of what they will be doing, because they're all leaders in what they do. And it's not just the manufacturing and headquarter building for Lucidian, it's the national research centre that will be going on there as well. So there will be people coming into and working alongside, and it's like an incubator space for advanced ceramics.
Well, thank you. Very reassuring.
Yes.
Yeah, Councillor Block, I think you said something about the number of buildings we got that we we're empty, and basically it was like why we're building new ones that we can't rent the ones out that we've got. I might be mistaken on that next week. But on the reports here, percentage of investment portfolio vacant is 6.9%, which I don't really regard as a bad figure. The target's 12, and it has 6.9. So I know there's a perception that everything in the council has an empty in North and Bedford, but it's really not. And we find that these units are very, very, very valuable, especially the middle-sized ones. Little starter units, it's the moving up to the next stage is what this is trying to achieve, and we feel that we've got a good foot on the market for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swin.
And thank you for the question, Councillor Brockett. Councillor Stubbs.
I think most of these will be yes and no answers. But so this plot C, where we're trying to build the smaller units.
Yes.
Okay. there's a report that's just gone to Cabinet that the costs are forecast to be 11 million. Is that right?
We're still working on a range of costs at the moment, depending on what the size of the units will be and affordability, viability, but it could potentially be in that region.
Okay. With regard then to the possible site of the Lycidium, is plot D, is that right? Yeah.
It's one of the
So
properties.
14 acres, of which they'll take 2.3.
If I can stop you there, plot D is broken down into 3 sites and 3 plots. It did look like the way that it was drawn on one of the maps that was made public a while ago, that they were going to take the whole area, but they're taking a much smaller area for one unit.
Okay. So it's the buildings that will be available, though,
No, they will be developed by Harworth.
Okay. Can I just check as well? So all the business rates that come out to Chatley Valley, the first 2.3 million in that go to the county. Is that right?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Yeah, it was a large amount. It's been reduced by a contribution from the LEP, so it's now 2.3, and they will take the first dibs of that. But with the rates that are coming off that, once it's built out, the business rates will that contribution will be paid back very quickly.
Okay. And Harworth are claiming that viability issues not allow them the normal 15%. And there's viability gap of 3.5 million. Is that right?
That was the gap.
Yeah. So that's what the county put in.
The county put that in, but that's been reduced to 2.3.
Yeah. I can see the getting building funds there for in the one too. Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that brilliant interrogation. As the staff say, it's scary when you hold the book up. As though you've got the Bible. Councillor Brocky, did you want to come back? I know you were reassured earlier, but then you pulled the face.
I just knew they'd have it back under some form or other, and they weren't going to be out of pocket. That's all. I pardon my cynicism. Perhaps it's just me. I'm from Birmingham.
Noted. Switch your mic off, Councillor Mike. Does anybody else have any questions that they'd like to put on this? Councillor Paulberry.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to make a comment. I think that the strategy of looking at different size units is absolutely right, because in my experience what tends to happen is that successful businesses start off in a smallish place, and then if you can nurture them, you can keep them in your premises for years to come. And I think that that's an important step. You start off with them, you build up a relationship with them, and you look at what opportunities they have and see how you can contribute to those opportunities and keep the jobs locally. So I think it's a good way forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know that the portfolio holder will feed that back to Cabinet, but we feel that there's quite a strong case been made there that their strategy is the right one. Well, in that case, we'll call a hold on the Town Deal and Future High Street Plans update. We will again in future have further reports, as will the other Scrutiny Committee, so it will be considered also in another place. Item number 7 is the technology strategy. This is a new strategy. It was an interim, but it has now been approved by Cabinet at its meeting this month. It's being brought here for us to probe it, to interrogate it if we wish. Councillor Sweeney, would you like to introduce the technology strategy?
Thank you, Chair. The Council has previously had separate ICT and digital strategies. This has now been brought together into a new technology strategy, which sets out how the Council can provide joined-up services for our residents, develops the skills of our workforce, and modernises our infrastructure, in particular utilising newer technologies which can support the reduction of the Council's carbon emissions. It's important that the Council keeps up with the latest developments in technology, such as artificial intelligence and gigabit internet connectivity, in particular those technologies that save officer time, provide cost savings and streamline processes, whilst also understanding that some of our residents are unable or unwilling to engage with the Council via digital methods. This strategy commits the Council to continue to provide traditional methods such as telephones and in-person visits. And I think that last line is very important for this Council. As to the rest of it, I'm not really very good on computers, so any questions, I'm sure Sam will delight in getting the answers.
Happily, this is within the portfolio of the leader, who, as we all know, is a colossus of technology. He sees the white heat of technology and he wields it like a cyberpunk god. But I'm sure that Councillor Sweeney will make an attempt to answer questions of the principal officers. So, Councillor Stubbs, would you like to go first?
It's not actually, it's a timing issue. You've obviously said that this has gone to Cabinet and approved and then come to us. Surely it should have come to us, and then we could have made recommendations for Cabinet to, add or not accept. I mean, it just seems odd that it's already on the statute book, and actually, we're just looking at it. We can't change it. So, might it be that next time it comes to us first?
This seems to me to be another argument for us to have more meetings, perhaps even monthly, even if it's just you and me in the room. But members will know that there is, because of the rotation of meetings, it could well be that had this report gone to the January Cabinet, we would have seen it pre-decision. But I'm certain the Cabinet will be willing to revisit it if we identify any significant flaws or opportunities for improvement during the lifetime of the strategy, which of course does run until 2028. So if anyone's got any comments on the report itself, we will feed them back to Cabinet. We can, members would like to question the portfolio holder directly, or indeed any of the officers who are here tonight. Would be delighted, I'm sure, to answer questions. So does anyone have any comments on the strategy itself? And if not, we'll accept the report. We're noting that it exists. If anybody thinks of anything, or if anyone wants this as an item on a future agenda, just mention it during the work programme item on all of the meeting agendas that we have. In that case, that's great. We'll close that one off. Brilliant stuff. Item number 8 is the work programme. As I say, at this sort of time every year we're heading into budget scrutiny, and therefore that dominates our agendas for the next couple of meetings. Does anybody have anything to add to the work programme at this point? No, that's fantastic. Item number 9 is public question time. There are no public questions on which I've received notice. Item number 10 is urgent business. There is no urgent business. That item is not moved. The date of the next meeting will be Monday, the 8th of January. So, unless you are lucky enough to be on the employment committee, this is the last committee meeting prior to Christmas for most of us. Have a very, very peaceful Christmas and Happy New Year. Take care. Good night.
Thank you, Chair. I got that on Christmas.